Okay guys, let's go over review a little bit of those graphing, the quadratic inequalities that we dealt with today. So first of all, we talked about focusing on the inequality. So if that's my inequality, I know it's going to be a filled in line. And also, since it's greater than or equal to, that means it's going to be shaded above. Okay, that's my first piece. Okay, now if I start to look at this, let's start getting our important pieces. So my y-intercept is based on this, so it's positive 3. So 0, 3 is going to be a point. That's going to be my y-intercept. If I want to do my x-intercepts, I'm going to do menu 3, 3, 1 for this equation. So a is negative 2. Assume there's a 1 in there. So b is negative 1 and c is 3. So if I have menu 3, 3, 1, and I plug in negative 2, negative 1, and 3, then the set that I get is negative 3 over 2, 1. Now remember, negative 3 over 2 is negative 1.5. So if that's my set and their x-intercepts, it's going to be negative 1.5 and 0, and 1 and 0. Okay, there's my x-intercepts. Okay, now I'm going to do my axis of symmetry. So x equals negative b over 2a. Now for this a part, remember we do the opposite of b. So if b is negative 1, that means it's going to be positive 1. I do 2 times a, and I know a is negative 2. So if I put this in my calculator, it's going to be negative 1/4. So x equals negative 1/4 is my axis of symmetry. Okay, now that means that in my vertex, that negative 1/4 is going to go there. So first of all, if I have negative 1/4 as a decimal, it's going to be negative 0.25. Now the decimal you don't have to have. It'll probably be written as a fraction on your paper, but it's much easier to graph when you have that. Okay, so if I'm going to do my vertex now, I'm going to look at my equation, which is negative 2x squared minus x plus 3. And I'm going to put this value in for all of my x's. So negative 2 and negative 0.25 squared minus negative 0.25 plus 3. And this is all going to go in my calculator. So negative 2, parentheses, 0.25 squared minus negative 0.25 plus 3. So this ends up being 3.125. Okay. Now, I mean, at this point, if you want to just use the decimal one, I mean, that's fine. Now we have to take all of the points that we have and get them on there. So we know that we're going to have 0, 3. That's my y-intercept. Negative 1.50 and 1, 0, which are my x-intercepts. And then negative 0.25 and 3.125. I have to get all of those on my graph. So on this graph, if I have 0, 3, there's my first one. Negative 1, 0, and 1, 0. And if I have negative 0.25, so I'm going to go over somewhere in there, just a little bit past the 0. And then go up a little bit more than 3, so maybe somewhere in here. Okay, now if I go to make my line, we said originally that this line was going to be filled in, and I'm going to have to shade above. So filled in line here, remember we want this to look like a curve. So it's a U and not a V. okay? And if I have to shade above, that means I'm shading out here. Remember, don't touch your line, get close to it. You want to be able to read if it's dashed or filled in. You're not going to be able to see that if you don't. Okay. Okay, go over the other ones in your notebook, and we'll do some more with this tomorrow.